We bring in one of my good friends now, John Jastremski, who joins. JJ, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's up, Brian? My apartment looks like a bomb hit it because we have just like luggage and crap and nonsense all
Well, you
over
just
the
got back
place.
from LA, didn't you? You just got back from the Super Bowl, right?
And I can't even get into my studio right now because I think Kate and Jeff Bezos are having like 10 hours of calls, so I don't even know what's going on in
Kate
there.
and Jeff Bezos. Wow.
I don't actually think she's talking to Jeff, but you get my drift.
Kate is JJ's fiance.
Important business is going on right about now.
I'm glad to hear. We just did a debate. Top 10 most evil sports figures of all time. Give me your most evil sports figure of all time.
Oh man, I feel like it's going to be biased though, depending on what team you're.
I'm asking for a biased one. Like, there's got to be someone like that just was awful for the Dolphins for years that you can't stand, right? I mean,
hold on a second.
Are
we talking about guys that were on my team or guys?
No, anyone. Just when you think of sports, most evil figure you could ever think of. Like, you just have disdain for this guy.
I always hated Alonzo Mourning. I couldn't stand Alonzo Mourning. Remember, that was like at the peak. That was like at the peak of Knicks heat. I hated Alonzo Mourning. I'm trying to think of somebody else. It's probably Red Sox related.
Oh yeah, David Ortiz, right? Roger.
Well, I mean, he's obvious though. He's obvious. He's no fun.
Dustin Pedroia is a good one, right? Because little short guy, annoying, hits 300.
I always respected Pedroia though.
Oh God.
I always liked Pedroia. He was a gamer. He was a scrapper. Schilling is probably on that list for me.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Schilling's an evil guy. JJ, speaking of the Knicks, let's stay on that theme. You blow a 28-point lead last night at the Garden. I got this opinion that I don't think you just ended your season for the Knicks. So their season's been over for a while anyway. You also might have given the Nets a jump start there because they're coming off an 11-game losing streak. You also showed them that, hey, if you're the Brooklyn Nets, we can win without our stars on the court. So I actually think you might have galvanized the Nets also. You got to be disgraced at this point with the Knicks, right? After last year, I mean, this is just pathetic at this point, right?
Listen, that's what it's been over the last couple of weeks, though. So I'm not really that surprised. And, hey, give you credit. I'm on the flight going back from L.A. You sent me a text message about betting the Nets live. When did you get that? Was the
plus
lead...
1,200. It was at 27.
It was a 27-point lead?
At 27 points, yeah.
Good for you.
Good for you. And that, to me, and I put this on Twitter because you tweeted me saying that I was the one that put the bet in that you knew. JJ, it being only plus 1,200, that to me is the storyline of the whole game because look at what the casinos think of the Knicks. I mean, plus 12, you're talking about a 27-point lead in the NBA. Now, I know leads are blown a lot more than often in the NBA. You're talking about 27 points here at plus 1,200. Those odds aren't even deep enough. That's what this books actually think of the Knicks. They think they're that bad that plus 1,200 is actually a number they gave on a 27-point lead to come back. Am I wrong here?
No, you'd be right about that. Listen, the Knicks are a total joke. They've been a bitter disappointment all year. This is a team that was a 4 seed that had so much going right for them a season ago. But let's take a couple of things into account. They took advantage of a league that was kind of dealing with the hangover because for teams that played in that Orlando bubble, you went until December. You didn't have a lot of time to maybe, get your bearings about you. You go from October to December or September to December. Knicks weren't one of those teams. They had the first-year bump from Tom Thibodeau, and everybody's killing this head coach. And look, by no means am I defending the job he's done with the 2021-2022 Knicks. However, look at the offseason. I ask you this question. What move did the Knicks make in the offseason that has worked out?
Well, that's
Fournier
the point.
is a stiff.
Their splash
Walker
was
is a stiff. The Randall extension is an out-and-out nightmare.
Oh.
Burks for 3 years. Noel for 3 years. They didn't make one move that worked throughout this offseason. But it's Tom Thibodeau's fault. The team is not any good.
And how come, this is another point too, how come we don't got to hear from Rose, we don't got to hear from Worldwide West, we don't got to hear anyone involved with the front office? They're the only franchise in sports where the front office doesn't have to speak for some reason. We don't have to hear from them. There's nothing that they're never called to the carpet. Listen, we saw Leon Rose in the stands last year when the Knicks are winning games because he wanted to take all the credit in the world, right? Where is he now? He doesn't have to speak. This guy has what is going on with this franchise? This is almost more upsetting than the years where they were awful for year and year and year because you knew going into the season they were going to be bad. Now, I mean, they gave you some hope. They gave you some promise. We were screaming bing bong 2 weeks into the season. Look at how bad they are now. I mean, they're awful, JJ.
I get that. And look, I didn't think they'd be a top 4 seed. Like, I was real about the expectations. I kind of bought into the idea that there was going to be a regression for the Knickerbockers.
But no one thought
but
this.
not to this extreme. Not to the point where you're now 9 games under 500, and it's basically President's Weekend and it's All-Star Weekend, and you don't have anything to look forward to. But yeah, the lack of accountability, it's pretty damn obvious when it talks about Leon Rose and West and all these guys. You haven't heard from them. You don't see them. And yet it's all Tom Thibodeau's fault. So Nick gonna Nick. I mean, that's basically the best way to look at it. They have 1 year where they make you feel good, and now it feels like they're further away than they've ever been.
I'm interested to see how you feel on this, and we're going to involve Vince in this part of the interview because Vince hates the Harden trade and the Simmons trade, loves it from a Sixers perspective, hates it from a Nets perspective, and I actually think Simmons is going to work in Brooklyn really well. How do you view this trade on both sides, JJ?
I like it for both teams. I really do. I think Philly got rid of a guy who didn't fit in there and was done there. Like, Philly. There are certain guys, when the fan base turns on you, there's no coming back from that. What happened with Ben Simmons last year in the Atlanta series, that was the point of no return. There was no coming back from that. You combine that with Simmons' stunt right before the beginning of the year, and I'm not trying to minimize his mental health or anything, but clearly he was not comfortable playing in Philadelphia. Okay. Sure. He goes to Brooklyn. Nobody cares about the Nets. It's not playing for the Knicks. You're not going to be on the back page every day. You could kind of blend in with that team. I know they get a lot of national attention. They don't get a lot of local attention. So you're there with Durant. You're there with Kyrie Irving. They go and get a shooter. They go and get a center. I like it from Brooklyn's standpoint because James Harden didn't want to be there. James Harden basically quit on Brooklyn the same way he quit on the Houston Rockets. But from a Philly perspective, look, Joel Embiid has a small window to go and win a title. Bigs, I don't care how good they are, their bodies usually break down.
He's already shown it. He's already
shown it.
Oh, yeah.
He's at the peak of his greatness right now, fellas. I'm rolling the dice if I'm Daryl Morey for 2 years that maybe it's the most lethal pick-and-roll combo in the NBA. And with the way the NBA is going right about now, you need 2 stars. Now Philly's got them. We'll see how it works out.
Now, Vince, you hate the Ben Simmons. Let's look at it from a Brooklyn perspective. Yeah. Why are you so off on it? I want to hear what you think and how JJ can combat that.
Yeah, because here's my feeling, JJ, is Simmons, all the skill set totally fits with what Brooklyn needs. I just don't think he's a team player. Like, he's a guy that thinks he's a superstar. He's got this big ego. He can't handle criticism. One of the big things he said when he left Philly was basically, I thought the team should have been built around me. It was built around Embiid, who's clearly miles better than Ben Simmons has ever been. So for the regular season, the value it can give you in the fit and all that stuff, totally. But for the playoffs, one, he shrinks as an offensive player. Nobody respects him. And is he going to be that, hey, I am the third best star on the team? I just don't believe that he thinks he's that guy.
Yeah, I get it, Vince, but when you're humbled the way he was humbled, I think it's going to change your perception. And when you go and play with Kevin Durant gets the best out of everybody. I mean, just think about the guys he's played with throughout his NBA career. You see their very best. He's that sort of guy, and I think he's going to get that out of Simmons. I don't think Simmons is going there thinking I'm better than Kevin Durant. I mean, if he thinks that, he's a moron. Yeah. I mean, he's a moron. I mean, let's call it what it is.
Yes.
Kevin Durant's the best player in the NBA. And I think going through what he's gone through in Philadelphia, you realize, oh, boy, I could end up, maybe getting Mr. Triple-Double with the Orlando Magic on a team that stinks, or the Sacramento Kings team that stinks. You're going to learn about Simmons and whether or not he wants to buy into being a part of a winning team, but I think he'll play nice. I'm not saying it will last long-term, but for the next year or two, I think Ben Simmons will play nice with Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and I mentioned this to Brian earlier. To me, he is a very sneaky Russell Westbrook. Like, he's becoming that guy where he puts up a lot of numbers. You talk about the athletic skill set and all that, but he's just not a great player.
Interesting. JJ, you would consider March 10th, Brooklyn at Philly, that's must go to, right? That's must watch at least.
That'll be fun. Yeah, well, let's find out if everybody's playing.
If Ben Simmons plays in that game.
With the way the NBA works, let's be careful because that could be a sit day for Ben Simmons, and then we have to wait until the postseason. But yes, assuming Simmons is on the court, that's a game you want to go to.
I want to be in the building for when he's on the free throw line. Like, you almost have to intentionally foul him in that spot just to get him on the line because the crowd will eviscerate him.
It'll be a riot. You know what'd be even more fun, guys? Having those teams match up in the postseason.
Yep. And I think we're going to get it, too. Like when it comes to the Eastern Conference, you're pretty much on a collision course for those two teams, right? I mean, at least as a 4-5 matchup, something like that.
You would think, except for, Brooklyn might be in the play-in for all we know, depending on how things work out. I mean, the East is really good. Milwaukee won the title. Miami is a top-notch team. Now, I'm not a believer in Chicago compared to those other two, but from a record standpoint, I mean, you could have Brooklyn taking on Milwaukee in the first round. So it might happen. It might not. I hope it does. I really do.
I think there's going to be potential. JJ lives in Brooklyn, Vince, and he lives near Steve
But
Nash.
I am not a Net fan, Vince. I can't stand the Nets.
Good for you.
So,
but you do live near Steve Nash, right? You've run into him a few times in the area?
I used to live right around the corner from Steve Nash. Now I'm like a
They're good buddies.
7-minute. I'm like a 7-minute walk from his apartment.
Yeah, they're good buddies. He knows.
I shouldn't even say his apartment. He lives in one of those like bougie brownstones with a garage, and he's probably got a pool and all that stuff. So
he should.
He's not exactly living in a 1-bedroom walk-up. Okay.
I wonder if how close JJ will live to Ben Simmons. Because I don't think JJ and James Harden were hanging out weeks prior when James Harden was living in Brooklyn
feel
or the
like
city.
Most of the guys who play for the Nets, fellas, do not live in Brooklyn. They all live in Manhattan. I mean, I could be wrong on that.
That just shows they wish they were Knicks, though, right? That just shows they wish they were the Knicks because they're living in Manhattan while they're playing in Brooklyn.
I wish that we could trade rosters, to be honest with you. I would be a lot happier as a fan if I got to watch Kevin Durant at some point.
How happy are you as a Dolphin fan? Because your team's kind of embarrassed itself this offseason. You fired one of the most promising young coaches in the league. You bring in Mike. Are you on the Mike McDaniel train as it is already? Is that where you've gone
I'm
to?
intrigued, guys. I see it going one of two ways. He's either going to be a rock star and he's going to be one of the best coaches in the league, or he's going to be fired in 2 years. Like there's no middle ground with Mike McDaniel. And look, I liked Brian Flores. I was a supporter of Brian Flores. With everything that has transpired this offseason, guys, I mean, the more and more you read, the more and more you see, it's like, this, that. He was not, let's put it this way. I thought I had my coach for the next decade. And when I read those stories about him, like, rubbing people the wrong way, it was one of those situations where I was like, really? Or is this just like slandering type stuff to come out of Miami? You look at his lawsuit that he's throwing out there, and listen, the guy should be coaching in the NFL, but 4 offensive coordinators in 4 years, and the idea that you're going to prove that Stephen Ross tried to bribe you to lose games, good luck winning that court case, guys. Good luck.
Okay, good luck winning it. But let me ask you this, JJ. Let's say it's true. Let's say Stephen Ross did pay Brian Flores to win games. How would you as a Dolphins fan feel about that?
I would have been happy because it would have meant the Dolphins had the #1 pick. What are you kidding me? I wanted the Dolphins to lose that year. This idea that I would have been offended, that it would have been like the be-all, end-all for me, no. I would have been like, great. They ended up with the #1 pick. Mission accomplished.
And now they got Tua playing quarterback, and you're still on the Tua train, right? You still believe in him as a.
Well, I mean, listen. I think he can play. Now, do I think he's going to be?
It's so obvious that he can't play, though.
But why?
He was a lot better this year.
Dude, JJ, he can't make throws outside the numbers. Like he's not an NFL quarterback.
But hold on a second. Could he make those throws at Alabama? Yes or no?
But that's so different. You have so much more time in Alabama. He's a 5-star recruit.
All right, good. I'm glad that you brought that up. He played behind arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL the last 2 years. We have to acknowledge that.
Yeah,
right?
they're bad.
Now, again, I'm not saying that he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the league. Look at the quarterback position around the NFL. You're telling me he can't be in the top half? I find that hard to believe.
But
Brian,
look at what other teams, and even in your division, have. I mean, I'm not going to put Mac Jones in that category yet, even though everyone
I was going to say you have Allen. That's
but I mean, look at the
better.
rest of the AFC, JJ. You got Herbert and Burrow and Mahomes. I mean, all these guys in the AFC. The AFC is dominant right now when it comes to quarterbacks, and you got guys like Tua. Listen, even the lower end quarterbacks. I don't put Tua in the same class as Lamar Jackson. Even I mean, there's so many better quarterbacks in the AFC right now than Tua.
I would agree, and listen, that's why the idea of proclaiming them as like a Super Bowl contender is nonsense.
So how do you get there then as the Dolphins? Like, is Tua the guy that's going to get you there?
But it's not going to happen overnight, Brian. Let's be real about the situation. They're not drafting a quarterback this year. The quarterback class stinks. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, free agency. Who's that with Jimmy Garoppolo? You're going to go get Jimmy Garoppolo?
I would rather roll with Tua.
Is he that much better? Is he that much better?
Yeah,
he's got no upside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he that much better? I don't know that. I don't know that. So like, I'm not jumping to go get Jimmy Garoppolo. Rodgers isn't going there, so forget about that. If he's going anywhere, he's going to go to the West Coast. He's not going to South Florida.
Unless we start the Rodgers in Miami rumors. Remember when Peyton Manning was available and Peyton Manning has a house in Miami?
I've heard every top quarterback linked to the Dolphins. So, but why do I bring this up? You finally have a guy who knows a thing or two about offensive football with them. Okay, they got money to spend in free agency. You go get 2 linemen. You go and draft a legitimate running back, they have a chance to do that maybe in the first or second round. And you give him this year. Brian, I think it's very simple. You give him 2022. You say, all right, Tua, go show me you're a top half quarterback. The answer is no. Guess what? You got 2 first-round picks next year. You got the Niner pick. You got the Dolphin pick. You go and get a quarterback next year. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I'd approach it if I'm the Dolphins. And the Deshaun Watson stuff, guys, you can't. How do you go down that road? First of all, Deshaun Watson, not that I am a legal expert by any means, he's not playing for at least 6 to 8 weeks next year.
Yeah,
at
he's
least.
going to get suspended at least.
So, if you trade for him, you don't have him for half the year. You're throwing a year right down the toilet. That's the idea of, that's all the eggs got to be in that basket. Really? I mean, I need a little bit more clarity before I'm making a declaration like that.
I'd agree with you there. JJ, also, did you know that your new head coach went to Yale? So there's a lot of optimism there. He's a Yale guy.
Emmanuel Sanders told me at Super Bowl, I remind him a lot of Mike McDaniel. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll find out.
John Jastremski from the Ringer podcast, New York, is joining us. JJ, Rutgers, are they a legitimate player in the NCAA now? That they're going to get in the tournament at least now, right? I mean, they've beaten a bunch of top-ranked teams at this point. I mean, they got to be. I'll tell you this. Purdue over the weekend is a play. Right? Because Rutgers is going to get a lot of value to put towards their side. A lot of people are going to bet them. Purdue's line is going to be good. Are you a believer in Rutgers? I'm asking you about Rutgers because Syracuse's season's over. So I want to know what you think about Rutgers. That's the only local you can root for.
They can make the tournament. Now, they have a couple of really bad losses. I was surprised too, Brian. I was looking at all these bracketologies, and they're not securely in. And I'm like, hold on a second. With all the wins, why are they not securely in? You look at their non-conference. They got a win over Purdue earlier in the year. They beat all these ranked teams. I think they beat, Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Illinois.
The last week's been ridiculous.
Yeah, I think they're on their way to making the tournament. They're playing really good basketball. But I caution you, though, we got a long way to go, man. Before, I'm looking at a team in mid-February and saying, oh, they're poised to go on a run. We got a lot of basketball
But
left.
admit to me, though, if Rutgers is Cuse is already in the tournament at this point. They love getting Syracuse in the tournament, and if Syracuse has all these wins over ranked opponents, Syracuse is already in.
Well,
so that's my difference.
But here's the difference with Syracuse: when they get in the tournament, they make the committee look good.
They do, and Rutgers
they usually get in and win a couple of games. Now they're not this year. You hit on that; they're not very good. But normally the committee, might get a little heat on Selection Sunday for putting Cuse in. And then when they're in the Sweet 16 a week later, it's I think we knew what we were doing. So, listen, Rutgers is on their way. I think they're getting in, Brian. Long story short. Yes, I think they're getting in the NCAA tournament. I'm just telling you, you go and lose a couple of games between now and the end of the year, and things can change. A lot can change between now and the middle of March.
One more question for you. When do you jump on the Rangers bandwagon? When does that happen? Because you tend to do that with hockey teams. You jumped on the Islander bandwagon last year. When are you jumping on the Ranger bandwagon? Because, they're great this year, right? They're top 3 in the Eastern Conference. They're a good watch now. So when are you jumping on the bandwagon?
I don't know. Listen, I want this postseason to go down. I'll be into it, though. I can tell you this. Regular season hockey does not do it for me.
Will you be at the Garden in the playoffs? Can I count you there? You're not going to be there for a Knicks game. So are you going to be there at the Garden?
Definitely not. Yeah, I guess so.
Interesting. We got JJ as a commit for the.
Well, here's
playoff hockey's great.
Here's the one thing. I'm not going to have baseball to watch, so I'll have a little bit more time on my hands.
Yankees aren't playing.
Yep.
Aaron Judge made some weird comments today that apparently he's had some great memories in New York.
That's a whole lot to do about nothing. That's making too much of a mid-February interview. No new CBA comes out. They're going to pay Aaron Judge.
I agree. JJ, formerly JJ After Dark. John Jastremski.
Haven't heard that. I feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's retired name I've not heard in a long, long time.
Retired name. JJ from New York, joins us from Spotify. JJ, thanks for joining us as always.
Thanks, guys.